The good gentleman has the floor to open the debate on House Bill 322 as amended.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Almost got lost in my own words there. Pardon me.
Me too.
Good, ladies and gentlemen. I will keep this brief. I think in reading this, most of us know what comes to mind. We're familiar with the 10th Amendment and statements made regarding the bounds of the federal government. And what this legislation does is it provides the Idaho State Legislature with a tool to examine the actions of the federal government in regards to the Idaho Constitution as well as the U.S. Constitution. Now, for an extended period of time, the federal government has been extending its influence into the states, both overtly and by subtle means, insinuating federal policy into state policy. And we have become nothing more at times than a subdivision of the federal government, whereas we were intended to be individual states within a union at that point. So what this allows us to do as a legislature is to take a look at federal actions and to examine them, as I said, to see whether it's appropriate for our state, and if they're not, to not enforce them within the state. Unless there be a question of the viability or constitutionality of it, it's explicitly constitutional for a state not to enforce a federal order. It falls underneath the anti-commandeering laws. The Supreme Court has upheld this. There was a case last year regarding California against the federal government where their 10th Amendment right was upheld not to enforce federal orders. The district court agreed that it was their right. The Ninth Circuit agreed that it was their right, and the Supreme Court agreed with that as well. We have an analysis from our own Attorney General that says there's nothing unconstitutional about this bill. This is merely just a process for us as a body and future bodies to evaluate what those actions are and whether or not they're appropriate for our state in Idaho, and to uphold our sworn duty of upholding both the Idaho Constitution and the U.S. Constitution. I would appreciate your green light. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Is there further debate? Hearing none. Gentleman from 19.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. None of us like administrative rules from the federal government. None of us like executive orders, and I know we certainly don't like them when the occupants of those offices are a member of our super minority. But what we are considering doing here seems to be to create a whole bunch of extra government for something that we can already do. If we think that a rule or a law or an executive order is unconstitutional, we can just write our reasons down why on a piece of paper and ask a judge to issue an injunction to put the brakes on that. It seems faster, it seems more cost effective. Now, I suspect that some of us don't like that. We don't like the status quo because we don't like leaving the determination of constitutionality up to a single person. I can understand, I can appreciate that. Here's the rub. We all swore an oath to uphold Idaho's Constitution and the United States Constitution. And under our model of government, the United States Supreme Court is the final arbiter of constitutionality. And under this bill, we're trying to bypass the Supreme Court by entrusting a committee of 10 people that can meet with a quorum of 6. So this bill suggests that ultimate constitutionality can be determined by 4 people in this room. 4 people with more power than the Supreme Court of the United States. I can't subscribe to that. It seems grossly inconsistent with the oath I took. And for that reason, and by that reasoning, I would ask for your no vote.
Is there further debate? Hearing none. Good lady from 31.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would just like to speak briefly to a couple of concepts. When we talk about the United States Constitution being the supreme law of the land, we understand where that statement comes from. We also know that we have a 10th Amendment. The 10th Amendment is not in direct conflict with the Supremacy Clause. What is being stated in the Supremacy Clause is that in regard to the powers established under the Constitution of the United States of America, our federal government is supreme. But in regard to those things which lie within the responsibility of the states, that is not the case. So this piece of legislation is specifically crafted to avoid language that is indicating that we as a body are exercising a judicial authority. We are not exercising a judicial role here. What we are doing is declaring that based on our conclusion, we are making a decision to direct the state of Idaho to act in a certain way as a legislature, and we have every legal right and a responsibility to do that. Thank you.
Is there further debate? Gentleman from 10.
Just really quick, Mr. Speaker, this legislation picks a fight, but it's in a good way. If we're going to push back on areas that are beyond the 10th Amendment, we need to get in the crosshairs of the federal government and irritate them. And this provides a way that we can identify those areas where we can act as though they are inappropriate, so that then we can have a challenge and a showdown in the courtroom over what those areas are. Without that resistance and without creating a controversy, in fact, you don't have a court case and you have no chance to change precedent. So I applaud the good gentleman from 1 for his bill.
Is there further debate? Good gentleman from District 7.
Would the gentleman yield to a question?
Would the good gentleman?
The gentleman yields.
Gentleman yields.
So this committee, does it just make recommendations to the body as a whole, or does it have actual power to move on decisions? Could you elaborate on that?
Gentleman from 1.
Good gentleman from 7. It is a recommendation only. That was a statement I was going to close with, so thank you for that. We review the evidence, we hold hearings, both sides will have their opportunity. It's a bipartisan committee, and then it is merely a recommendation made to the body, so it will be the body of both chambers and potentially the governor, depending on what that legislation looks like, that will make the ultimate decision.
Thank you. Could I speak?
You have the floor.
So this, with some of the stuff that is coming from D.C. in executive orders, this sounds like a good idea to help protect our state and our 10th Amendment. I can see where it can really do no harm with just recommending to the body. If the harm's done, it'll be because of us. So I will be supporting.
Thank you. Is there further debate? Hearing none, will the gentleman from 1 please stand and close the debate?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good ladies and gentlemen, I think very salient points have been made after my opening, and this is not something that should solely be left to the courts. While that is a remedy, it is also our duty to look at these orders, actions, and determine if the federal government's not restraining itself, it is within our purview to say this isn't right for our state in representing our constituents. So I would appreciate your green light once again. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Debate is closed. The question before us is, shall House Bill number 322, as amended, pass the House? The clerk will unlock the machine and the members will record their votes. Does any member wish to change his vote? The clerk will lock the machine and record the vote. The vote count shows 56 in favor with 12 against and 2 absent. House Bill number 322, as amended, has passed the House and will be transmitted to the Senate.